Years ago, I was a friend of Bud Abbott Jr. Bud and I used to work together, drank together, and in fact, they even did his income taxes. So that's how well I knew him. In the years I know him, every once in a while, we would talk about our guest today. This is Chris Costello. She's the youngest. Chris is here today to do some myth busting and to talk to us about her world famous father. So, Grandsons of Italy, I give you Chris Costello.
Yay! Great, I was going to stand, so now I'm sitting. Hello.
You play baseball?
You what?
Do you play baseball?
I play professional. Oh, how's everybody doing?
Good.
It's a good meal. Oh my God. And I'm on Weight Watchers. Now, putting an Italian in an Italian restaurant on Weight Watchers.
What's wrong with that? We're all.
Exactly. Well, I thought you mentioned Bud Jr. and how much I wish he were here today, because he loved these type of events and functions, and he had such a great personality and so many stories. My God, we would spark a story or a memory, you know, just talking. He was real people oriented, just a gem as you can, you know, well testify to. And but I once said to Bud, you told him to do income taxes, and as I once asked him, I said, Bud, do you have a will? And he looked at me like, what? I said, do you have a will? And I said, you know, just write it down on anything, but a paper bag. And do you know he did? And I said, but Bud just had such a kind heart. So this is for you, Bud. And I know you're probably here right with us today. So I'll give you a little bit of background on Dad, of course. He comes from an Italian heritage. His father came from Caserta, Italy, which is north of Rome, a little farming village, which is still a little farming village to this day. In fact, a friend of mine was over there years ago, and she said, now the train passed through Caserta, stopped for maybe 20 minutes, 30 minutes, and she said, now I know why your relatives migrated to America, because she said there was nothing there. But his father was Sebastian Costello, or Sebastiani, which is on his birth certificate. He had desires actually to become a priest and had entered the seminary in Caserta. When he was very young in his 20s, he happened to be peeking over the nuns walking below the balcony where he was standing, and he leaned over a little too far and he actually fell off the balcony and was knocked out for a day. That's when he decided, you know, he was not going to become a priest, but he wanted to leave Caserta, come to America to follow a brother, Philip, who had already come to America, which he did. And it was in America that he met my grandmother, Dad's mom, who, as he put it, was a dark-haired Irish lass that he fell instantly in love with. So my dad has Italian on his father's side, but he's also English, Irish, and French on his mother's side. But definitely, you know, we identify more with the Italian genes. No, Costello was not the name, it was Cristillo. Costello was mainly the stage name, because Costello was Irish, it's not Italian. But how did he get the name Costello? It was never changed legally. On all of his documents, including passport, driver's license, was Cristillo. It was his first time out in Hollywood when he wanted to become an actor. He never had any desire, I think, to become a comedian at that point. He wanted to follow in the footsteps of his idol, which was Charlie Chaplin. So when he came out to California the first time to become an actor, as he said, This Is Your Life, he said, I slept in a lot of parked cars, I ate a lot of peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, I was lucky to get on the construction gang at MGM. They asked if I did stunt work. I immediately said yes. They had him on a horse in a Western. He said he had never seen a horse because he was from Patterson, New Jersey. And evidently he was in a saddle which turned and put him under the horse. It was Dolores Costello who had said to him, you know what, you need to go back and hone your craft, perfect your craft, and then let Hollywood ask for you. And he was so taken with her advice that he decided if he were ever to see himself progressing up that ladder, he was going to take the last name of Costello as a thank you to her, which he did. So he became Lou Costello versus Louis Costello. He got as far as St. Joe, Missouri, ran out of money as he was hitchhiking back to New Jersey. And it was in St. Joe in a coffee shop where he looked across the street and they were advertising for a Dutch comic. You know what a Dutch comic is? Well, the Dutch comic usually wore the baggy pants, had a Dutch accent, the oversized shoes, and he said, I will wear the baggy pants, not the oversized shoes. I won't speak with a Dutch accent. And that launched him into what would be the first step towards meeting Bud Abbott, entering burlesque. He worked there for about 16 months, got enough money to get back to New Jersey, and he played some of the local burlesque houses in Patterson, and then gradually moved into the bigger burlesque reel, which was in New York. It was probably a couple of years past that when he met Bud for the first time. Both were appearing on the same bill. Each had partners at the time. My dad's partner got sick, and Bud happened to know all the routines, of course, and said he would step in for him that night. And history basically was made from that union. They both, did some gigs for a week or 2 weeks. Dad was at the Lyceum in I think it was Ohio. And Bud sent him a telegram and said, would you like to team up? And Dad wired him back and said, absolutely. And that started the team of Abbott and Costello. Of course, all of you, when you think of Abbott and Costello, what do you think of is of course, Who's on First. And many people have asked, how did Who's on First come about? Well, Dad and Bud were very, very dear friends of Jolton Joe DiMaggio. It became one of their dearest friends. And they had always wanted to do something to kind of eulogize and memorialize it. They loved him. They wanted to pay tribute to him. So they decided they were going to do a baseball skit. Who's on First? Basically, the pattern of it, the format, goes way back into the burlesque, archives of routines. Volts and Wants, Who's the Boss? And what they took is the basic blueprint of those old routines that were born out of the English music hall. And they put the baseball lingo to it. One of the best stories I have was Lou Reed, who was my dad's first cousin. And Lou passed away, I would say, what was it, about 8 years ago? He lived to be 90-some years of age. God bless him, very dapper man. And he loved telling the story of how he felt so honored as a young man in his 20s to be able to hear Who's on First for the first time, not on the stage, but when they were rehearsing it in the basement of my grandparents' home in Patterson, New Jersey. Lou said, I was young. Lou offered me a job to drive him into the city every night when he was doing burlesque. And he said, I was just ecstatic. First of all, I could pick up a few bucks. But he said, I was really going to see the Burlicue girls. He said, that's what was on my mind. So he was having a great time. Dad had said to him one night in the car, Lou, if you don't have any plans over the weekend, would you stop by Mom and Pop's? Because Bud and I have just written this routine which we want to run by you and see what you think about it. So Lou said, sure. He said, I felt very honored. I mean, why would they choose me? He said, I really was honored. So he went by my grandparents' home that weekend, went down to the basement, and he said they started to go into this pattern of the routine. He said, and I sat there being, very important. I crossed my legs like I'm reviewing this. And finally Dad looked at him and said, well, what do you think? And Lou looked at him and said, you know what? it's not gonna fly, scratch it, it's not gonna fly. And he said, for years, I've said, thank God they didn't listen to me. So, but Who's On First, definitely when you think of Abbott and Costello, you think of that routine. Their career lasted 25 years. They hit every medium, from burlesque to radio, Hollywood, television. They still continued doing live performances, Vegas, loved performing for the troops here in the States. They were very patriotic men. Both men were, gave a lot to Uncle Sam, especially during the war years and the war bond effort, where they raised a record, I think it was 30 million in just 3 days, going across country. And were honored on the steps of City Hall by Mayor Furiel LaGuardia. What I'd like to do, though, is open it up for questions, because a lot of times you're going to ask me something that I haven't thought about, and I don't want to leave here without making sure all your questions are answered, okay? So whoever wants to start, just raise your hand. Did they fight? Did they hate each other? Did they? Yeah, they had fights. They had disagreements. They were human. I always say you can't be together for that amount of time and not have an argument or a disagreement. You can't. You know, it's like any relationship. You're going to have disagreements. Sometimes they got a little out of hand, or maybe they wouldn't talk for a few weeks or whatever, but you know, they always came back together. They were like brothers. They really were siblings. You know, Bud Abbott explained it in an interview when he said, you know, Lou and I spent 25 years together as a team. We saw more of each other than we did our own wives. And throughout that time, we did have our disagreements. He said, but you know, the point was is we got back together because we were friends first. We were, you know, there was a tremendous love there that both men had. I remember asking Betty Abbott, Bud's widow, when I was interviewing people for my book, and I had asked her about, you know, the supposed disagreements and the fights and whatnot. And she said, you know, Chris, when that would happen, your mom and myself, we would just let them have their disagreement. Life went on. Because we knew that as fast as the disagreement may have come up, it would end just as fast. So, but they did not hate each other, no. You couldn't be together that length of time, seriously, and have a good working relationship if you hated each other. Well, here's the funny thing about Who's On First is they never did it the same way twice. They never did. If you look at any of the Who's On First, you will see a word interjected that was not in the last one. The reason why they did that is they wanted to keep the routine fresh. They didn't want it to get stale. So Dad was notorious for ad-libbing. Notorious. And a couple of times he really tripped Bud up pretty good. The family, I was too young, I was not there ringside when this occurred, but they were the Sahara. It was their last time in Vegas as a team. And they broke into Who's On First, and my sister recalls saying the family knew what was going on. The audience did not. But we could see beads of perspiration on Bud Abbott's brow. And he started to look really nervous. What happened is Dad started ad-libbed and interjected a word and threw Bud completely off, but then threw my dad off. So now this routine is going on, it's going on, and it's going on, and the audience is cracking up. They're thinking, this is wonderful. They had no idea that both men were lost in the routine. And it took 22 minutes for Bud Abbott to bring Dad back to the point of departure. That's a record. The routine basically runs 8 minutes or so. That ran 22 minutes. So the audience got a little bit more, you know, bang for their bucks that night. But no, they just wanted to keep it fresh, and the pattern was fast, but they were doing it for so long. You know, I mean, it was like a second skin to them to be able to do this routine. Another reason why Dad liked to ad-lib. But they ad-libbed a lot, even in their film Buck Privates. The drill routine, the famous drill routine. If you listen very carefully, you're going to hear all of a sudden Dad in the middle of this routine, he's going to say, what time is it? And Bud is going to say, never mind what time it is, you know, and got him right back. that is the true mark of a great straight man. And there, seriously, Bud Abbott was one of the most phenomenal straight men that has ever graced this industry. And he's never really gotten the credit for that. So I need to really tell you that without a great straight man, you don't have a great comic. And it was Bud Abbott who really elevated my dad up to being the comic that he was. And also, somebody had asked me earlier about them getting the 60-40 cut. In burlesque, it was standard for the straight man to get the higher percentage of the cut versus the comic. And the reason being, he's got all the work. He's the setup guy. You know, if he falters, the whole thing falters. So he always got a higher percentage. But when they came to Hollywood, is when they renegotiated the contract to where they got 50-50. It was my dad that came home was just a totally different person. You know,
That was my question.
You know.
It was like at home, like.
well, he was a lot quieter. A lot quieter. You know, I mean, it took one child in through the room and then he would go right into character. You know, he'd, go into the wall or trip over it, stuff like that. But no, he wasn't like that at home, That would be fun, but no, he was not like that. He was, I mean, to me, it was like Dad came home from the studio and he was just Dad. And then he went to the studio the next day to work, Even when he would take my cousins and I out to the sets during the summer months, I was still watching Dad in a character. It was not my dad that came home. He was very much an Italian dad. Very, Catholic Italian dad. I mean, you can, any of you have a Catholic Italian dads?
You had no boyfriend.
There you go.
What was his favorite dish?
My dad's?
Italian food.
Pasta vazul. Which my mom was a killer Italian cook, being a Scot. But my grandfather taught her how to cook Italian, so she...
Do you know how to make it?
I do not, pasta vazul was not one of my favorites. I can remember sitting at the table, oh God. This is when you're gonna eat everything on that plate and you're getting it tomorrow for breakfast. And I would sit there, oh God, making the runs to the bathroom, I'd go to the bathroom, and I'd be there at 6, 7 at night, and he would just stare at me, and I'd just stare back, like, I can't eat this. I don't like it. It has those funny things in it. I don't want garbanzo beans. I don't want to eat it. So yeah, he was very strict, but pasta vazul was his favorite. He loved Italian. He was not good with money. He had, what is it, short hands, long pockets, or long pockets, short hand. Oh God, my grandfather, if he'd allowed my grandfather to handle his money, he would have been a lot better off. Wow. He thought the whole world was this birthday party, and he just wanted to give. Everybody wanted, come to this birthday party. It was, money to him was to help others, But it used to drive my mom insane, because once a year, they'd have a Christmas party. He never drank, but once a year he would have one drink, and that's when he would start going out, passing out these $100 bills to people, and my mom, the Scot, was right behind him, collecting them back. He was an excellent athlete. He was not, you may think he was fat in films, he wasn't. He was very solid. It was the clothing that they put him in to make him look pudgy and fat. But when he was in Patterson as a kid, he was always very athletic-minded. He loved baseball, basketball, especially basketball. And so he would shimmy up the drain pipe at the old armory to watch the games. And he played on the Armory 5. And there was also another team that he played on, but he became the foul shooting champion of Patterson, New Jersey, twice in a row, I think 1924 and 25. He was an excellent basketball player. What's funny is when he did the film Here Come the Co-eds with Peggy Ryan, where there's the all-girl basketball team, that's playing against Bixby, the college. If you haven't seen the film, rent it, because all of the basket shots from off camera is Dad. Yeah, he's shooting all of the basket shots. What's interesting is they brought in a basketball pro, in the beginning to teach Dad how to play basketball. So Dad had the ball and he said, oh, so you mean like I hold the ball like this? And, can I go like this? And he's bouncing it. And he says, oh, and then I shoot it like this. And he shot and it went right into the basket. And the guy was so embarrassed. He'd been a little condescending to Dad in the beginning, so Dad was showing him up. Guy just walked off the set, but he was an excellent basketball player. And also prize fighter under the name of Lou King. Short-lived. He was a prize fighter for a very short time under the name of Lou King, L-E-W. And it didn't last long because his uncle, who was my grandmother's brother, he was the fire chief, said to my grandfather, I hear there's a new kid boxing Friday night. Do you want to come and see him? So my grandfather said, sure. And then my grandfather realized that Lou King was his son. And so the next morning when Dad came to the breakfast table with a shiner, and kept saying to his mom, you really do have to lower those doorknobs, Mom. And, so his father just put the paper down, looked at him and said, well, good morning, Lou King. And that kind of ended that career. My dad had a corporation, TCA, Television Corporation of America, which, we are shareholders of. We own the television show series that you see. That was his, that he produced. We are still under like an 11 picture deal with Universal on a certain percentage off 11 pictures, which is something my dad, way back in the early part of the career with Universal when they first went in under contract, as he fought for. So they 10% of the gross of the films. Who's on first is did you hear, has anybody read anything about a lawsuit with Who's on First? No. You haven't? Okay, well, we didn't get to the Supreme Court. They decided they weren't going to hear our case. At any rate, we were in the process of suing a Broadway show over them using the entire version of Who's on First, which is jointly owned by both the states. And we finally were going all the way to the Supreme Court to protect the copyright of this routine. But unfortunately, they only take 17% of the cases that are submitted, so our case was never heard. But just to give you an idea is the routine itself could not back then be copywritten. They couldn't walk into the copyright office and say, here's a routine, we want it copywritten, because it had to be published. Well, the only way it could get published was through Universal when they did their first film, One Night in the Tropics. Abbott and Costello basically is loaning their skit to the studio, which of course the studio copyrights the film, so it's protected under the copyright of the film. And also they loaned it to them again for Naughty 90s, which is the most identifiable of the routines. So Universal eventually quit-claimed back to the estates the copyright on Who's on First from the films. And the copyright is under what's called a 1909 Copyright Act, which means even with the quit claim from Universal coming back to us, we still could not go to the Copyright Office and copyright a routine that's basically already copywritten through the studio. So this was what our fight was with Who's on First. It's something we're still going to fight for. But in case anybody has heard anything about this lawsuit with the Hand of God, the Broadway show, you got it firsthand from me as to what's going on. Okay, they loved gambling. They would gamble on anything. Guess the blood pressure. They would. My dad. Oh God, he was. And the horses. Oh my Lord. Oh my Lord. They both. But the poker game started way back in burlesque. This is what guys did and people performing in burlesque and vaudeville did to pass the time. Between the shows as they would play cards. So that's what they did, they played cards. Were they good card players? No. They lost a lot. I think the only time I heard of anybody winning big at one of their card games would be Bud Jr. Okay, that used to be a runner, you know, for the drinks and the sandwiches and used to get the tips. But no, they were not really good card players. They even had Dad at one point, I think at MGM, had a mobster called Nick the Greek from Chicago put on the call sheet.
Uncle Nick, yeah.
And finally the studio got wise and took him off the call sheet. But he was being brought onto the stage, you know, to do these heavy card games, you know, with Dan and Bud. From that came a movie of the week starring Buddy Hackett, Harvey Korman. But it was probably Hollywood sensationalism at its very best. My sister Carol, who passed away in '87, was so livid, and she was working at Ralph Edwards Productions at the time, and somebody happened to sneak her a script, and she hit the roof, and she called Bob Thomas and said, "How can you write such blatant lies, you know, about my father?" And he said to her, "Unfortunately, you don't sell a book by being nice," you know, which really, you know, it really hurt both families. So the families on both sides threatened lawsuit. So if and when, and we hope you don't, watch this Bud Lou, there's nobody alive portrayed. So it looks like it's just my mother and Dad and Bud, and that he only had one son. It was just, to me, the final slap from a manager whose career basically went downhill after the team dissolved.
Any talk of a new one, or any?
You know, I'm really not a fan of it, to be honest with you, and I'll tell you why. Is I don't trust Hollywood, and I've had people approach me on my book, and I'd say, but when it comes down to the control over content, they're not going to give me control over content. And now I've just taken 4 years out of my life to correct the story, to have some Hollywood producer just put it right back to, you know, as a Bud and Lou. No. I remember the large parties at the house, but as a kid, I'm not interested, you know, who's walking through the door. You know, I mean, there was, Patty, my sister, says I can remember stars coming to the house, you know, she said we'd be in the movie theater watching, you know, a movie or something, and I'd hear the doorbell, and I'd like, oh God, you know, okay, I'll get it, you know. Oh God, it's Clark Gable, he wants to borrow a film. Well, Carol, you go and deal with it. No, I don't want to, you go. You know, it's you know, you're just a kid, so none of that stuff really means anything to you. Errol Flynn got 86th from the house. Wow. Well, one of my sisters was having a birthday party, and I guess some of Hollywood's elite of the kids, you know, from stars, were sitting in this movie theater at the house. And Errol Flynn offered to bring by one of his films, a swashbuckler film, which my sisters thought was really cool. And so my dad threads the film, and he leaves the theater, he goes out to the bar, he's sitting in the bar area with Errol Flynn, but he said it's weird, there's no sound. They're not reacting to anything. So he got up and he went to check on them, and he said, I opened up the door, and he said, Errol Flynn had brought a stag film as a joke. Well, Carol and Patty said he chewed his cigar in half and was screaming, close your eyes, don't look, close your eyes. You know, and he turned the machine off and he went back out to the bar and he decked Errol Flynn off the chair. So Errol Flynn was off limits at the house room. I actually told that story to Rory, who is a friend, and Rory Flynn, and she laughed. She said, "That'd be Dad." Loved the public.
People first for an autograph.
Oh yeah, he never turned anybody down. Never ever. He said to my sister Carol, I guess we used to vacation in Del Mar in the summertime. And we went into La Jolla to a restaurant, and some people came up to the table during dinner to ask for his autograph, which he graciously gave. And I guess Carol may have made it sound like, oh God, like this. And he said to her, it's because of those people that I am where I am today. So he always acknowledged the fans, he never ever turned a fan away. You know, the IRS situation, if I can be honest with you for a minute, oh boy, has that one gotten out of control.
It was George Pratt.
The IRS situation happened when Dad was producing the Abbott and Costello television show. Unbeknownst to Dad, the business manager or accountant was not filing the business payroll taxes and kept asking for an extension after an extension after an extension. This is what tipped the IRS off. Well, when they came in, they decided that they were also going to bring in Bud Abbott, and they were going to make an example of Abbott and Costello to the Hollywood community. Well, thank God Dad got one of the best attorneys, Arthur Manella of Manella and Manella in Century City. I actually interviewed him for the book, and he had brought out of storage boxes of all the correspondence, everything with the IRS. He said, what happened is that because I had association and I had worked with the Treasury Department at one point, I was able to have the penalty tax knocked off. So what they initially owed was not what they owed and paid off before their deaths. A funny story, though, he told me, is that Dad had a horse running in one of the big high-stake races. And he had told Arthur, if this horse wins, I'm going to be able to pay this debt off to the Internal Revenue. Boom. You know, I'll bring the cash in. Well, Arthur Manella said to the IRS, if you can give him an extension, he's got this horse that's racing. And the debt will be paid off almost immediately. And the horse, it looks like it's a shoo-in. So he said, can you imagine on a Saturday, I'm in my office with two IRS men sitting around a radio. Now, basically, it's like we're placing a bet, you know, on this horse. And I guess what happened is the horse's shin bucked or something, and he was eliminated out of the race. But Dad used to be really funny about the odds, not jockeying around with the odds. So he's told one trainer, but they were back in New Jersey, and he may have been racing at Monmouth or something, but Dad specifically told the trainer, do not tell anybody about this horse racing or what the odds are. He said, I just don't, I want to keep the odds up. Well, evidently the trainer did go into a local bar in Patterson and started talking after a few drinks and dropped the odds on the horse. And when he told, when Dad asked him, you know, if he had told anybody or said anything, he said, well, I went into some little place in Patterson and I just happened to mention, he said, Jesus Christ, he said, don't you realize if you tell one Italian, you've told all of Italy. So, as giving and as spoiling as he could be, he was also, he could take things away. For instance, my sister was given a brand new car for her 16th birthday, and at her 16th birthday, she had done something wrong. And the car went back to the dealer. They were very strict, you know, it's, you don't cross the line. You know, I think what I've learned is, well, I thank them every day for being raised the way they raised me. You know, my mom, as I said, was a Scot, you know, and you didn't ask twice, you just did it. I mean, that's the way, you know, I was brought up. There was respect. Everybody was either an aunt or uncle, you know, when you addressed an adult. You know, if there were adults that came to visit, you were, you know, you come and say hi and this and that, but then you go and do your thing, and we're doing our thing. So I really appreciated, you know, that blueprint that they gave me in life. You know, and also Dad, I think with making us realize that you're not special because you have a parent that's famous or this or that had special. Yeah, Carol had, she was 16, I think at the time, beautiful, beautiful girl. And she had met Elvis Presley. when she was driving down Sunset Boulevard, and he had asked her out, so that she gave him her number, you know, out of the car. And he called and asked her out on a date, and she accepted, and then she didn't say anything to Dad as to who she was going out with. And so she was coming down the stairs, ready to go out, and he said, "Where are you going?" And she mumbled. She said, "I couldn't." I said, "No." And he says, "Where are you going?" And "Where are you going?" And she finally told him she was going to see Elvis Presley on a date. And he said, "To hell you are." And no. You guys have been awesome. I really have enjoyed my time here with you. You're wonderful. Thank you for having me. You're great.